Today, we're heading back. Way back. New York City in 1976.
Right. And NYC back then was already, well, it was struggling. Crime rates were high. Things felt pretty chaotic.
Yeah, definitely on edge. But then, starting that summer, something new hit the city. A different kind of terror.
A singular terror. It was this 13-month spree, ultimately leaving 6 people dead, 7 injured. But what made it different, I think, was how the killer made himself known. He communicated.
Exactly. It wasn't
Yeah.
just, faceless violence. This felt like a performance almost. The media first latched onto the weapon, calling him the .44 caliber killer.
Makes sense. But he wasn't having that. He stepped in himself, left a letter, and basically branded himself with a name that stuck.
A much more infamous name.
Son of Sam. David Berkowitz.
So that's our focus today. We want to walk you through the timeline of that terror, really unpack it. Then we need to get into the psychology. I mean, was he genuinely hearing voices, this demon dog stuff, or was he just incredibly manipulative?
And there's a third piece too, right? The legal side. How this one case actually changed laws in the U.S., specifically around criminals profiting from their crimes.
Okay, let's start with that timeline. Because the fear, as you said, it was intense. Partly because the attacks felt so random at first.
They did. But then a pattern emerged. He targeted strangers, often young couples, parked cars late at night, mostly in the outer boroughs, Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn.
But the detail that really cranked up the fear, the one everyone remembers, was his focus on victims, specifically young women with shoulder-length, dark brown hair.
That detail ignited sheer panic. You had hundreds, maybe thousands of women across the city literally dyeing their hair blonde, cutting it short, buying wigs, just trying not to fit the description.
It created this, citywide atmosphere of terror and his weapon of choice.
The .44 caliber Bulldog revolver, that was his signature, earned him that first nickname. He didn't always kill, but the injuries were often catastrophic.
Let's acknowledge the victims. The very first attack, July 29th, 1976. Donna Loria was killed. Her friend, Jody Valenti, survived.
Yeah, and even survivors often face devastating consequences. Joanne Lomino, shot in November '76, was left paralyzed.
Carl De Niro, hit in the head that October, but he survived.
And the final attack, July 31st, 1977, Stacy Moskowitz tragically died. Her date, Robert Violante, was shot in the face, blinded in one eye, partially in the other. Just terrible.
And as these attacks went on, something shifted in Berkowitz's approach, didn't it? He wasn't just shooting anymore.
No, he started engaging. He actively wanted the police, the public, the media to know he was out there. He craved the spotlight.
And that's when Son of Sam really became the name everyone knew. These letters started appearing.
Bizarre letters, handwritten rambling, full of weird references to demons, Satan, his master. He famously sent one to Jimmy Breslin, the New York Daily News columnist, guaranteed maximum exposure.
I remember reading quotes, mocking the police, calling himself a monster.
Right. I am deeply hurt by your calling me a woman hater. I am not. But I am a monster. I am the Son of Sam. That need for recognition, that direct engagement. That's kind of the first big clue about the manipulation angle, isn't it? Way before the demon dog story.
Yeah, it's like the killing itself almost became secondary to controlling the narrative, the fear.
Exactly. The performance became the point.
And after all that terror, all the resources poured into catching him. The way it ended was almost mundane.
Oh, completely. You'd expect some brilliant piece of detective work, right? A huge shootout. Nope.
A parking ticket.
A parking ticket. At the scene of the final shooting, the Violante and Moskowitz attack, July 31st, '77, he'd parked his Ford Galaxy too close to a fire hydrant.
Someone noticed the car.
A witness remembered seeing patrol officers ticketing cars on the street that night, including one that seemed suspicious near the crime scene. She mentioned it. Police went back, checked the summonses issued in that specific area around that time.
Bingo.
And bingo. Traced the ticket back to David Berkowitz in Yonkers. 10 days later, August 10th, 1977, they found him sitting in that car outside his apartment building. Arrested him right there.
The relief in the city must have been immense. But then the shock, right? Seeing who the .44 caliber killer actually was.
Yeah, this 24-year-old guy worked part-time sorting mail, ex-Army, honorably discharged. He looks average. So normal, as people kept saying.
But his confession was anything but normal. This is where the whole story just takes a hard left turn into the bizarre.
Right into the demon dog narrative.
He confessed pretty much immediately, didn't he?
He did, but he offered this wild explanation. He claimed his neighbor, this guy named Sam Carr.
The Sam in Son of Sam?
That Sam Carr. He claimed Carr was possessed by an ancient demon, and this demon was giving Berkowitz orders through Sam Carr's dog, a black Labrador retriever named Harvey.
Through the dog's barking.
Through the dog's barking, yeah, that's what he said. The barking conveyed the commands to go out and kill, to satiate the demon's thirst for blood. That was his story.
Okay, so immediately the legal system slams into the insanity defense question. Is this guy genuinely psychotic, or is this some kind of elaborate act?
That became the central battleground. But before the trial, let's look at his background a bit, because there were, potential warning signs.
He was born Richard David Falco, then adopted by the Berkowitz family.
And his childhood had some deeply troubling elements, things often linked, retrospectively at least, to later violence. Arson, he admitted, setting hundreds of small fires.
Wow.
Cruelty to animals apparently killed his adoptive mother's parakeet with cleaning fluid. Plus, social isolation, reports of head injuries. The so-called McDonald triad elements were kind of there.
So the court's faced with this guy, with that background, telling the story about a demon dog. They have to decide. Is he competent to even stand trial? What did the psychiatrists say initially?
Well, the first wave of evaluations leaned towards him being unfit. Several prominent psychiatrists diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia. They thought the hallucinations, the delusions about the dog and the demons were real symptoms of psychosis.
Which, if accepted, would mean he couldn't be held criminally responsible, right? He'd likely go to a psychiatric hospital, not prison.
Exactly. But then came a counter-analysis. Dr. David Abrahamson, who ironically had helped draft New York's insanity law, evaluated him.
And he saw something different.
Radically different. Abrahamson found Berkowitz to be intelligent. Tested IQ was 118, well above average. He concluded Berkowitz wasn't schizophrenic, but had a histrionic personality disorder.
Meaning?
Meaning he saw Berkowitz as calculating, attention-seeking, a performer, not legally insane, able to understand right from wrong and the nature of his actions.
Okay, so that's a huge difference for you listening. Schizophrenia implies the demon dog story was, for Berkowitz, real. Histrionic personality disorder suggests it was an elaborate lie, a performance to manipulate the system.
A performance to avoid prison. And the debate was intense. But ultimately, Berkowitz himself kind of ended it.
How so?
His lawyers pushed hard for an insanity plea. But in May 1978, Berkowitz overruled them. He stood up in court and pled guilty to all 6 murders.
Just like that. Accepted responsibility.
On the surface, yes. But the real twist came later, after he was sentenced. In February 1979, he talked to an FBI agent. And he admitted the entire demon dog story was a complete fabrication.
Yeah.
Made up.
He just admitted it.
Yep. Said he cooked it up, hoping he'd be found insane and sent to a cushy hospital instead of maximum security prison. Pure strategy.
So what was the real motive then, according to him?
He told the agent it was basically rooted in resentment towards women, especially his biological mother, and his own failures in relationships. Much more mundane, in a chilling way.
And even those courtroom outbursts, like when he started chanting, "Stacy is a whore, I'll shoot 'em all."
He admitted that was an act, too. Trying to disrupt things, maybe postpone the sentencing, it all points back to performance manipulation.
So the demon dog wasn't real, the courtroom breakdown wasn't real. It was all about controlling the narrative, controlling his fate.
It seems that way. His identity as a killer was tied up in being seen, in being talked about, whether the audience was the demon he invented, the press, the police, or the courts.
Okay, so that settles the psychological question for the most part, but the story doesn't quite end there. There are still these lingering theories, right? Did he really act alone?
Ah, yes. The cult conspiracy theories. These gained a lot of traction, largely thanks to a journalist named Maury Terry. He wrote a book, The Ultimate Evil, arguing Berkowitz didn't act alone.
What was the theory?
That Berkowitz was part of a wider satanic cult network, sometimes called the 22 Disciples of Hell. Terry suggested others were involved in the shootings, maybe even Sam Carr's sons, John and Michael Carr.
Has Berkowitz himself ever fueled this?
He's been ambiguous. In later interviews, he sometimes hinted he wasn't totally alone, maybe suggested he was just a lookout for the final shooting, things like that.
What's the official stance? Did police ever find evidence of others?
They did reopen the Yonkers investigation briefly in the mid-90s, based on Terry's work and some of Berkowitz's claims. But ultimately, no charges were ever brought against anyone else. The overwhelming consensus among law enforcement and forensic experts is that Berkowitz was the sole shooter in all the attacks attributed to Son of Sam.
So the later claims are likely just more manipulation, more attention-seeking.
That's how most experts view it, yeah. It's pretty common for serial killers, once caught, to try and spread the blame or just keep the story going. He's serving 6 consecutive life sentences, eligible for parole since 2002, but
He hasn't sought it.
nope. He consistently refuses to attend his parole hearings, says he deserves to be in prison. Which brings us to his current persona.
Right. He's undergone another transformation in prison.
He claims to be a born-again Christian now.
Yeah.
He even refers to himself as the son of hope instead of the son of Sam. Works apparently as an aide or caregiver for other inmates. Runs websites, writes essays about faith.
It's quite the narrative arc, from demon-possessed killer to redeemed servant.
The ultimate pivot, you might say.
Oh.
Which leads us to the legal legacy. The fear wasn't just about catching him. It was about what might happen after. Could he cash in on his notoriety?
And the government moved fast on that.
Incredibly fast.
Yeah.
The New York State Legislature passed what became known as the Son of Sam Law, literally the day after his arrest in August '77.
What did it do?
The basic idea was to stop criminals from profiting directly from their crimes through books, movies, interviews, whatever. Any money generated would supposedly go to a victim's compensation fund.
Seems reasonable on the surface. But it ran into trouble, didn't it?
Big trouble. Constitutional trouble. Critics argued it targeted speech based on its content, specifically speech about crime, and that violates the First Amendment's guarantee of free speech.
So a killer's story is protected speech.
That was the core issue. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in 1991, the court struck down the original New York law as unconstitutional. They found it was too broad. It didn't just target profits from sensationalized accounts. It could potentially stop legitimate works, maybe even historical accounts or autobiographies written by former criminals trying to explain their past, like the autobiography of Malcolm X. The court said you can't restrict speech just because the subject matter is crime.
Okay, so the state's goal of helping victims clashed with free speech. How did they resolve that? What's the law now?
States, including New York again, in 2001, came back with revised laws. They shifted the focus. Instead of restricting the speech itself, the modern laws target the profits after the criminal receives them.
How does that work?
They typically give victims an extended period, a longer statute of limitations, to file civil lawsuits against the perpetrator if that perpetrator receives a significant amount of money, say $10,000 or more, related to the crime story. So the money comes in, then the victims can sue to get it. It gets around the direct free speech problem.
So you end up with this case that's just fascinating on so many levels. The psychology manipulation versus madness. The legal fallout, the First Amendment battles. It forces you, the listener, to really grapple with where Berkowitz stood. Calculated evil or genuine delusion.
And if you trace his entire story, it's really a masterclass in narrative control, isn't it? He starts as the nameless .44 caliber killer. Then he performs as the son of Sam, possessed by demons.
Then confesses that was a lie, admitting to calculated malice.
And now, for decades, he's been performing the role of the son of hope, the redeemed Christian.
So here's the final thought we want to leave you with. Given this lifelong pattern, the arson for attention as a kid, the taunting letters, the fabricated insanity defense, the shifting stories you have to ask.
Is this current son of hope persona just the final act, the longest-running performance?
Could it be less about genuine repentance and more about achieving that lifelong ambition? Ensuring David Berkowitz, in one form or another, remains infamous, remains relevant forever? It's a chilling possibility.